You lie down, eyes half closed, and imagine yourself slowly drifting upward through cloud banks of soft vapor, past marble pillars glowing with moonlight. Eventually, you arrive at the Olympus Administrative Hall, an oddly bureaucratic place, perched just above the mortal sky. Here the gods don't just rule, they file. Everything has a process. The bolts of lightning. They're issued with permission slips signed in triplicate. Storms require scheduling with the Department of Seasonal Phenomena. Even immortal romance, yes, even that comes with regulations, documentation, and at least one witness from the Council of Eternal Conduct. At the center of it all is Zeus, king of the gods, ruler of skies, and arguably the most disorganized administrator in celestial history. You might picture Zeus as a thunder-hurling titan with divine authority. But in reality, he spends half his day in a swivel cloud chair, elbows on a polished obsidian desk, staring at a growing pile of unresolved forms. There's a folder labeled Romantic Entanglements, Pending Review. It is thick. Outside his chamber, a group of divine interns argue over the correct shade of blue for official rain cloud memos. One says indigo. Another insists on storm gray. Neither knows that Zeus approved both last week. He just forgot to file the update. You glance around the Olympus org chart posted near the break room. At the top, Zeus, Supreme Executive Officer. Below him, Hera, Director of Marital Oversight. Then Poseidon, Head of Ocean Resource Management. Hades in charge of underworld logistics. Even Apollo has a minor role in sunlight distribution. Each department reports in via heavenly scroll, which Zeus reads at some point. Probably. The problem isn't that Zeus is lazy. No, he's energetic, too energetic perhaps. His enthusiasm spans lightning, law, love, and poorly timed adventures. He starts policies he forgets to finish. He authorizes divine visits to Earth, then loses the post-visit review forms. When asked if he approved the Great Flood, he blinks and says, "Oh, was that today?" The other gods have learned to work around him. Athena keeps her own records. Hermes runs his own courier tracking system. Hera, well, she files formal complaints regularly, sometimes directly to the stars, hoping someone out there actually reads them. Yet, despite all this administrative chaos, Olympus hasn't collapsed. Not yet. Mostly because Zeus, for all his blunders, means well. He really does try. He just forgets to initial things. You hear the gentle scribble of a quill on enchanted parchment. Somewhere a divine secretary writes, "Memo to Zeus. Remember to attend today's meeting on mortal dreams. Location, Cloud Room, B. Time when the moon reaches its highest sigh." Zeus will forget, he always does. And so begins our slow and meandering journey through the most chaotic personnel file in Olympus, the life and liabilities of Zeus, king of the misfiled. You feel your breath deepen. The gods are busy, but not in a hurry, and neither are you. Sleep comes slowly, like paperwork processed by immortals. The marble walls of Olympus seem to hum with the low, endless murmur of scribes at work. Pens scratching scrolls, unrolling, and wings fluttering as divine interns scurry through the corridors holding stacks of forms. At the center of this slow-motion storm is the Office of Eternal Unions. It's a peaceful place, scented faintly of rose oil and ancient ink. Inside, the clerks process marriages between gods, demigods, nymphs, cloud spirits, and even the occasional sentient breeze. It was here long ago that Zeus first filed his application to marry Hera. The application form, 227B, Divine Union Request, is quite simple. Just a few questions. Name of applicant 1. Name of applicant 2. Purpose of union. Whether thunder will be involved during ceremonies, check, yes, no. Special dietary requests for the immortal caterers. Zeus. Being Zeus was in a hurry. He had a lightning storm to coordinate over northern Thessaly and a dream appearance scheduled for a mortal hero later that evening. He filled out the form quickly, confidently, too confidently. Applicant 1, Zeno. Applicant 2, Hero. It was a simple transcription error. The U looked like an N. The A in Hera looped too wide and became an O. The scribe on duty, assuming this was a marriage between a philosopher and a mortal heroine, dutifully filed the request into the mismatched historical pairings archive between Orpheus and Hologram and Apollo, and that one time he married himself. It took 3 centuries for anyone to notice. By then, Zeus and Hera had already been acting as spouses, attending galas together, co-ruling the sky realm and attending marital counseling with Eros once every 50 years. But officially, their marriage had never been approved. Legally speaking, Zeus was still listed as celestial bachelor, open status. When confronted with the error, Zeus furrowed his brow and said, "But I signed it. I remember signing something." He always remembers signing something. The clerk nodded politely. "Yes, my lord, but the something you signed was not accurate. You are not Zeno, and Lady Hera is not Hero, although she is brave." Hera, when told, went completely silent for 47 minutes. Then she demanded a full audit of all relationship paperwork on Olympus. "Let's see how many other forms he's misfiled," she said, dangerously calm. What followed was a bureaucratic excavation. Forms dating back to the Bronze Age were dug up. It turned out Zeus had accidentally requested marriage to a thundercloud shaped like a goat, an echo. The concept of spontaneity, a mortal temple which was very flattered. The damage was not just legal, it was emotional, mythical, and deeply, deeply administrative. To fix the mess, a new office was formed. The Bureau of Divine Clarification, tasked solely with interpreting Zeus's paperwork. A team of linguists, seers, and exhausted scribes now pore over every form he submits, translating ambiguous handwriting into legal meaning. From that day on, all marriage forms filed by Zeus had to be dictated, witnessed, and reviewed by a neutral third deity, usually Themis, goddess of order. She began charging a modest fee, 1 olive branch, and a vow of good behavior renewable every decade. And so the union between Zeus and Hera was eventually recertified, though it was technically recorded as a reenactment of intent to marry rather than a new wedding. Hera insisted it be backdated to their original ceremony. Zeus agreed, but forgot to sign the final confirmation. You smile softly. It's all so silly, so slow, so strangely comforting. Somewhere in the divine archives, a scribe still files Zeno and Hero under unlikely but approved. And the story of how Zeus miswrote his own name remains part of Olympus's quiet, dusty history, a tale whispered by yawning gods as they settle into clouds for their celestial naps. Sleep continues to settle around you. Even immortals forget things, it seems, especially when they don't use block letters. The Olympus Complaint Chamber is a quiet, echoing hall located just beyond the Gardens of Ambiguity. It is built of cloudstone and lined with shelves of neatly stored grievances, most of them written in elegant celestial script. Some scrolls hum faintly when unrolled, especially those filed by Hera, Queen of the Gods, and undisputed champion of formal complaints. On a particularly overcast afternoon, long before mortals invented parchment or patience, Hera submitted her first official grievance against Zeus. It was titled, "Concerning Repeated Infractions of Marital Conduct and Unauthorized Use of Transformational Magic in Pursuit of Extramarital Engagements." The scroll was 18 pages long, front and back, with footnotes. It opened politely as formal Olympus protocol required, To the esteemed Council of Olympus, I submit this letter not in anger, but in clarity. But as the scroll unfurled, the tone shifted. By page 3, she was referencing specific incidents. By page 6, she included hand-drawn diagrams. By page 11, she added testimonies from nymphs, mortals, and one talking oak tree. Page 14 simply listed names: Leda, Callisto, Semele, Europa, Io. The list continues. Each name was underlined in gold ink. Some were circled. A few had little storm cloud doodles beside them. She also included a timeline of infractions starting from the dawn of time and ending with an event listed as yesterday's suspiciously long lightning patrol in Thrace. In the margins, Hera wrote annotations like, "Again, did he think I wouldn't notice the swan thing? See attached sketch highly inappropriate bull." By Olympus standards, the letter was considered remarkably restrained. The complaint was submitted to the Council of Immortal Oversight, a committee that had never before handled marital disputes. The chair god at the time, an elderly river spirit named Boreon, took one look at the letter and muttered, This is not my jurisdiction." They tried to form a subcommittee. That subcommittee dissolved after 10 minutes, when Aphrodite and Athena began arguing over whether love or strategy could solve the problem faster. Eventually, the letter was handed back to Zeus. As was protocol, he was expected to write a formal response. His reply was brief. "Dear Hera, I understand you are upset. I shall be more careful next time. Yours in thunder, Zeus." He forgot to sign the bottom. This reply, of course, triggered a second letter, 21 pages, this time with charts. The argument escalated into what scholars would later call the First Paper War of Olympus. Quills were snapped, scrolls were burned. Poseidon briefly banned both of them from using ocean metaphors in their complaints. Over time, a new position was created in the Olympus hierarchy, Clerk of Domestic Divinities, a minor god whose only task was to mediate paperwork between Zeus and Hera. That poor deity eventually moved to the underworld for some peace and quiet. Despite everything, Zeus and Hera remained married. Sort of. In the way that eternal beings do, fighting, reconciling, filing complaints, and appearing together at public events. Sometimes they even agreed on things, mostly about how annoying it was when mortals misunderstood their legends. You feel the softness of sleep circling close, the rustle of long-forgotten scrolls and the distant clap of metaphorical thunder lull you further into stillness. The gods argue file forms and continue forever, but you simply rest. It began as most things do on Olympus with a schedule mix-up. The first ever council hearing on Zeus's behavior was intended to be a 2-hour discussion in Cloud Room C, right after a routine session on thundercloud zoning disputes. But due to an incorrectly folded invitation scroll, most deities showed up in full ceremonial robes, under the impression that this was a coronation. It was not. Once the confusion was cleared after Hestia returned, the laurel wreath she had prematurely accepted, the gods settled into their assigned cloud-cushioned thrones. At the front, sitting slightly askew on his lightning stone seat, was Zeus, looking mildly annoyed, but mostly hungry. He had skipped lunch for this. To his left, Hera, arms crossed, scroll in hand, expression unreadable. To his right, Poseidon sipping salted air from a coral goblet, whispering jokes to Demeter. Behind him, Hermes already sketching cartoons in the margins of the official record. At the center of the great round chamber, a glowing orb slowly rotated. It displayed a timeline of Zeus's questionable decisions updated in real time by the Fates, who were knitting in the corner with very pointed expressions. The council chair, a wise and sleepy titan named Hypatus of Protocol, began. This session, called under Clause 27, Godly Conduct, and mythical reputation management shall address concerns raised against Lord Zeus. All present breathe quietly. All absent be metaphorically summoned. He tapped a gavel made of mist. Nothing happened. So he tapped again. Still nothing. Eventually, Ares sneezed, and that was taken as the official opening signal. The first topic, unauthorized romantic ventures and the resulting myth. Inflation. Athena, ever organized, presented a list of mortals and demigods allegedly fathered by Zeus. Apollo raised his hand and asked, "Do we include the ones born from rain?" The room went silent. Athena, without looking up, replied, "Yes, especially those." Next, Dionysus offered refreshments, nectar, and fermented starlight, which delayed proceedings by 3 hours, as several gods began singing mortal sea shanties and forgot what the meeting was about. Once focus returned, Hera stood to speak, her voice calm, her tone frost on fire. "I am not here for revenge. I am here for reform. I suggest mandatory accountability rituals, annual fidelity oaths, and a public apology, preferably during the next full eclipse." Zeus cleared his throat. "I have never intended offense. My love is expansive, like the cosmos." Demeter rolled her eyes. Hermes muttered cosmos, but with commitment issues. A lively debate followed. Some gods defended Zeus. Others demanded suspension. Ares offered to duel him just for the drama. Hephaestus accidentally dropped a wrench. Hades, attending via Underworld Echo, only said, "Please leave me out of this." By day 6, a subcommittee was formed to define what exactly constituted divine misconduct. By day 9, the subcommittee resigned. By day 12, they had drafted the following resolution. Olympus Resolution 01F. Zeus may continue in his role as king of the gods, pending better handwriting, improved behavior tracking, and completion of a 12-week emotional awareness and mythic boundaries course supervised by Athena. Zeus nodded solemnly, then asked if lunch was still being served. The meeting adjourned not with a decision, but with a mutual shrug of eternal proportions. The gods rose their robes trailing mist, their complaints temporarily shelved. Olympus does not move quickly, but it moves. Eventually. You, gentle listener, breathe slower now. Meetings like this have no urgency, no outcome worth rushing toward. Only celestial delay recorded in golden ink and the weightless calm of forever filing forms. Close your eyes. Even kings must sit through meetings. And now, you do not have to. Deep within the Olympus archives, in a drawer labeled Sensitive Transformations, pending review, rests a scroll unlike any other. It is not bound with ribbon, but with a string made of pure exasperation. It reads, Internal Report Number 2199B, concerning the unauthorized transformation of Io, a priestess of Hera, into bovine form, by Lord Zeus. It all started innocently enough by divine standards. Io was a respected mortal priestess. She lit incense properly. She never missed a solstice. She even returned borrowed lyres. But her misfortune, as so often happens in mythology, was being beautiful and nearby. Zeus noticed her during a ceremonial dream. He followed up by appearing in her temple disguised as a cloud, which, as Hermes later noted in his unofficial commentary, was neither subtle nor weather-appropriate. When Hera grew suspicious after noticing an oddly localized thunderstorm hovering over Io's neighborhood, Zeus panicked. His solution was classic turn the woman into a cow, specifically a snow-white heifer with glowing eyes and uncertain consent. He then claimed the cow was simply a gift. For you, Hera, he said, presenting the heifer, a token of my loyalty. Hera, who had seen many things but never a transformation, this clumsy accepted the cow, with a smile, a very slow one. And then she assigned Argus Panoptes, the 100-eyed guardian, to watch the cow at all times. Argus did not blink much. This entire situation triggered a rare event, an Olympus compliance audit. Led by Themis herself, the goddess of divine law, a formal inquiry was launched into questionable morphological interventions by high-ranking deities. The report includes statements like, "Subject was unaware of pending transformation. No paperwork was filed for transmutation of priestess into livestock." Zeus claims this was a precautionary measure to prevent scandal, which is not a recognized legal defense. Hermes, acting unofficially as both investigator and rescuer, was later dispatched to liberate Io. He distracted Argus by telling a soothingly boring story. Some say it was the genealogy of wind currents, until all 100 eyes drifted closed. When Argus slept, Io escaped. When Io escaped, Hera retaliated by sending a gadfly to sting her forever. The fly, named Buzzifus, later received an Olympus Medal of Petty Valor. Zeus, for his part, tried to retroactively submit a Form 908A request to protect mortal through temporary ungulate conversion. Themis rejected it. Too little, she wrote in the margins, and far, far too late. Eventually, Io was restored to human form, though the experience left her with a permanent aversion to dairy products. The internal investigation concluded with no official punishment. But Zeus was quietly banned from transforming mortals without oversight. From that day forward, any act of shape-shifting required written approval from 3 neutral gods, and an explanation longer than 10 words. Zeus often struggled with the second part, and so the case of Io Cow Priestess and unfortunate love interest remains etched in Olympus' legal memory as a turning point for magical accountability. You sigh softly. Even divine beings, it seems, must eventually answer for their creative impulses. And when they don't, there's always another scroll to file. The story drifts away like mist. You grow still. Sleep is near. And not a single god can turn you into a cow tonight. In the Olympus Hall of Resources, where divine utilities are tracked and distributed, there is a long-forgotten department labeled Flame Authorization and Elemental Requests. Most of its drawers are filled with applications for rain delays and moonlight extensions, but tucked inside a heavy file marked P, problematic, is a single heavily edited scroll. Application for Permanent Fire License, Mortal Access, requested by Prometheus Titan class inventor. Prometheus, known for his unmatched foresight and slightly irritating optimism, had been lobbying for fire access for centuries. His reason: to help mortals cook forged tools and survive the upcoming ice epoch. His proposal was carefully formatted, well-worded, and color-coded in flame hues. He included temperature safety guidelines, ethical usage clauses, and a handwritten testimonial from a grateful cave person named Grug. Zeus, however, rejected the application with a single sentence: "Too dangerous. Mortals will misuse it. Also not my vibe." He signed the scroll with a lightning bolt doodle and a coffee stain. Prometheus appealed. He submitted graphs showing reduced frostbite and increased soup consumption. He argued that fire would elevate humanity, bringing warmth-craft and grilled vegetables. Zeus remained unmoved. "They'll just set things on fire," he said ironically while twirling a thunderbolt. Eventually, in a quiet act of disobedient compassion, Prometheus stole fire anyway. He snuck into the celestial ember chamber, lit a torch from the eternal spark, and smuggled it to Earth inside a fennel stalk. This triggered Incident Report number 427F, Unauthorized Elemental Transfer. Across Realms, Subcategory Titan, Interference with Mortal Development. Zeus was not amused. He summoned Prometheus to a disciplinary hearing, which was poorly attended due to a concurrent ambrosia tasting event. The transcript of the hearing reveals the following exchange. Zeus: "You defied my explicit decree." Prometheus: "Your decree was short-sighted and lacked footnotes." Zeus: I am the footnote. Prometheus. That doesn't make sense. Zeus. Exactly. In retaliation, Zeus sentenced Prometheus to eternal skybound incarceration chained to a cliff liver on endless replay eagle included. The Department of Ethical Eternities filed a concern punishment may be excessive. Reconsideration suggested after 3,000 years. Meanwhile, mortals flourished. They baked bread, forged swords, and discovered marshmallows. Zeus watched from Olympus, scowling gently. See, they're poking sticks into things now. Still, he never revoked fire. Deep down, even Zeus knew Prometheus had been right. To save face. Zeus retroactively claimed the fire gift was part of a 5-stage mortal growth initiative, though no one could locate the other 4 stages. Prometheus, when asked if he regretted it, replied, "Never, but next time I'll bring recipes." And so fire burned on earth softly, steadily, while in Olympus a file labeled, "Denied, then accepted unofficially," was quietly shelved behind a statue of Athena's owl. The warmth from Prometheus's flame now fills kitchens and hearths, and perhaps just a little your blanket tonight. Let the embers of that quiet rebellion warm your sleep. Even in a world of thunder, one stolen spark can last forever. There are storms of rain. There are storms of lightning. And then, there are sibling meetings. One of the most notorious arguments in Olympus history did not involve war, love, or fate. It was about property boundaries, specifically whether Mount Olympus could legally claim airspace over certain tidal zones. The main participants, Zeus, supreme sky executive fond of dramatic weather entrances. Poseidon, lord of the seas, fond of tridents, horses, and being the loudest voice in every room. Moderator, a tree spirit named Euphra, who regretted saying yes to this job immediately. The meeting was supposed to start at noon. Zeus arrived at noon, plus thunder floating in on a stray cloud wearing his casual lightning robe. Poseidon arrived at noon minus tides riding a salt-crusted chariot pulled by angry seahorses. They began talking at the same time, which turned quickly into talking over each other, which became shouting in parallel mythologies. Euphra, tapping her little gavel made of seashell and sky stone, tried to bring order. "Gentlemen, let us address one issue at a time, starting with coastal cloud layering." Poseidon slammed his trident down. "He's fogging over my waters. Mortals think it's my fault the sun is gone." Zeus flicked a spark from his sleeve. They asked for shade. "You're welcome." Poseidon pointed to a water-damaged scroll. "You parked a thundercloud above Atlantis for 3 weeks." Zeus raised an eyebrow. "I thought Atlantis was your little experiment. I assumed you were watering it." They both glared. To document the encounter, Hermes secretly activated the Olympus audio scroll recorder, which captured the entire exchange in crystal-clear, dramatic whisper. The transcript preserved in the Library of Celestial Misunderstandings includes gems such as, "You can't just electrify the air without notice. It's air, Poseidon. You don't own vapor. Then stop sending hail into my fishing villages. Maybe label your sea breezes. I keep tripping on them." The meeting lasted 7 hours, during which Demeter arrived with snacks and left when no one thanked her. Apollo offered to mediate, then left when they mocked his poetry. Athena filed a memo titled, "This could have been a scroll." Eventually they reached a vague agreement. Sky shall respect sea at low tide. Sea shall respect sky during meteor showers. Conflicts shall be reviewed annually on neutral clouds. It was never enforced. Poseidon stormed off, literally triggering a minor whirlpool in the Adriatic. Zeus dismissed the whole thing with a shrug, saying, "It's all water under the bridge," which I also made, by the way. Despite everything, they remained brothers. Immortal, infuriating, and forever entangled in divine paperwork. Later that evening, the recorder's audio was replayed in the Olympus lounge. The gods took turns reenacting Poseidon's angriest lines using props. Zeus laughed the loudest, and so the quarrel ended, not with resolution, but with immortal indifference, which in Olympus counts as progress. You inhale gently. There are no arguments here, only calm. Even the most thunderous gods eventually fade into sleep, or at least into the soft crackle of sky on sea. In Olympus, power is eternal, except when it's temporarily suspended due to poor decision-making. It was supposed to be a joyful occasion, the wedding of a minor wind nymph and a retired cloud sculptor. A quiet affair scheduled in the evening sky pavilion, complete with ambient harp music, seasonal ambrosia, and strict no-thunder policies clearly posted on scrolls tied to every cloud pillar. Zeus had not RSVP'd. He simply appeared late, descending with a flourish of lightning and a booming voice that rattled everyone's wine goblets. "I bless this union," he declared, hurling a celebratory thunderbolt directly into the wedding cake. The cake exploded. White icing rained for 3 minutes. A guest fainted. The lyre quartet stopped mid-note. The harpist cried. At first, Zeus seemed unaware of the chaos. He twirled his beard and said, "A bit of drama adds flavor." But the bride's veil caught fire. The groom's hair curled permanently. And Hera, who had helped plan the event, stormed out muttering something about eternal juvenility wrapped in static. Later that evening, a formal complaint was filed under Incident 330K, misuse of symbolic weaponry in social gatherings. The council convened the next morning. They were tired. The harpist had sent a scroll written entirely in minor key. The nymph's family was threatening to hold all future ceremonies underground. Even Athena seemed slightly embarrassed on Zeus's behalf. After brief deliberation and a lot of head-shaking, they issued a rare disciplinary action. Divine Decree Number 1112 S. Suspension of lightning privileges for Zeus, Lord of the Sky, for a duration of 7 lunar days. Terms: no thunderbolt throwing, lightning summoning, or dramatic crackling. Use of clouds for transport is permitted, but must remain silent. Zeus may carry a symbolic staff, but it must be made of wood. When Hermes delivered the scroll, Zeus scoffed. "What am I to do? Wave a stick at mortals?" Hermes shrugged. "Maybe just attend things without exploding." During the suspension, Olympus became noticeably quieter. Mortals reported unusually calm skies. Birds flew straighter. Temples didn't need roof repairs. Zeus tried to compensate. He snapped his fingers for effect. Nothing happened. He clapped loudly at speeches. Only awkward silence followed. Once he shouted, "Boom!" by himself in a hallway. It wasn't the same. He even tried using a hand-drawn lightning prop, but the other gods just stared at him. Apollo asked if it was a puppet show. By day 5, Zeus was sulking in the Sky Lounge, muttering about how nobody appreciates theatrical timing anymore. By day 6, he started writing poetry titled The Silence of Thunder. It wasn't very good. On the 7th day, Hera returned the wooden staff, now covered in daisies. "Your bolts are back," she said dryly. "Try aiming them somewhere useful next time." Zeus smiled, then accidentally knocked over a constellation with his elbow. All was normal again, and so the thunder returned, tempered, if only slightly, by a brief, embarrassing week of restraint. The lesson: even kings of the sky sometimes need a time-out. You meanwhile hear no thunder now, only hush, only air. Let the quiet remain. There are many ways to court someone. Flowers, poems, long walks. Or if you're Zeus, turning yourself into a snow-white bull and abducting a mortal princess across the sea. The incident began, as these things often did, with an unfiled transformation request. Europa, daughter of a Phoenician king, had been enjoying a leisurely afternoon picking flowers by the shore. She was known for her wisdom, calm demeanor, and strong sense of boundaries, qualities which naturally attracted the attention of a shape-shifting thunder god with a poor track record. Zeus, observing from Olympus, decided that a simple introduction wouldn't suffice. She deserves something majestic, he thought, something with horns. And so, without consulting the Olympus Office of Mythic Appearances, Zeus transformed himself into a dazzling white bull, complete with polished hooves, soulful eyes, and just a hint of glowing divine mist. According to the official complaint later filed by Europa's cousins, the bull approached without warning, sat calmly next to her, and then once she climbed onto its back, leapt into the sea and swam westward. The abduction prompted immediate outcry, not just from mortals, but from within Olympus itself. You see, shape-shifting, while allowed, was governed by Divine Decree 45b, which stated, all transformations involving mortal interaction must be a registered in advance, b, accompanied by a witness, deity c, clearly reversible within 72 hours. Zeus had done none of these things. Themis issued an investigation titled Unregistered Use of Beast Form in Romantic Context. Meanwhile, Europa was relocated to Crete, where Zeus tried to explain things awkwardly by turning into a human mid-sentence and offering her a bronze robot as a gift. She was not impressed. She later became Queen of Crete, which was a decent consolation, but still filed a statement of emotional disruption due to sudden maritime relocation. In response to the event, the council proposed a new law, no more bulls. It was informally called the Europa Clause and added an entire annex to the Divine Transformation Manual titled Creatures to Avoid When Wooing Mortals. The list includes bulls, see above. Swans due to prior incidents with Leda, golden rain ambiguous and difficult to explain, eagles too symbolic, talking clouds creepy. Zeus agreed in principle, but continued to file retroactive permission forms after each transformation, which Themis politely labeled not how time works. The saga with Europa remained one of the most frequently cited cases in Olympus Law School. Newly appointed deities are required to read it during orientation under the lecture titled Power Form and the Ethics of Impressing Mortals. As for Europa, she lived a long, celebrated life, though she reportedly developed a deep mistrust of livestock. And Zeus, he briefly considered becoming a dolphin next. Fortunately, Poseidon intervened. You shift under your blanket. No bulls swim here, only sleep. Only the soft tide of stories. After centuries of complaints, petitions, audits, and at least 2 marble statue smashing outbursts from Hera, the Council of Olympus reached a quiet but unanimous conclusion. Zeus must attend a professional development course. Not just any course, but a mandatory ethics training specially designed for high-risk deities who demonstrated a pattern of impulsive behavior, poor boundary management, and excessive use of transformation spells in romantic contexts. It was titled Interpersonal Conduct and Celestial Responsibility, a workshop for Olympians with authority issues. Zeus groaned when he heard the name. Can I at least skip the icebreaker? No. Attendance was compulsory. Absences would be reported directly to Nyx, the primordial goddess of darkness, who had recently taken an interest in HR reform. To make matters worse, the lead instructor was none other than Hera. She entered the lecture chamber wearing her formal robes of justice, carrying a pointer shaped like a scale, and wearing an expression carved from centuries of sighs. Welcome, she said. Today we'll be exploring what not to do. Zeus, please refrain from shape-shifting while I'm speaking. The classroom included other problematic deities, Ares, who had accidentally declared war during a family picnic, Aphrodite present as a guest observer due to several HR inquiries, Dionysus, who thought the session was a wine-tasting seminar. The first module was titled Consent Not Just a Formality. Zeus slouched. Hera clicked her pointer. An enchanted scroll unfurled mid-air, showing animated reenactments of past missteps involving bulls, swans, and unsolicited abductions. Zeus muttered, "That bull looked majestic." Hera replied without turning, "So do volcanoes. Doesn't mean you ride one into a wedding." They moved on to romance and rank, which covered why it's not appropriate to date mortals while controlling weather over their farms. But I brought rain to her village, Zeus argued. Unsolicited weather, Hera replied, is still unsolicited. In the interactive segment, participants had to role-play scenarios and respond with ethical choices. Zeus was paired with Athena. The prompt: a mortal offers you a gift. What do you do? Zeus: accept it. Flirt a little. Bless their family line for eternity. Athena: reject it politely and offer neutral wisdom. Zeus lost that round. By mid-afternoon, the group was instructed to draft personal myth improvement plans, PMIPs, Zeus's included. Fewer disguises, more communication, less thunder during apologies. The workshop ended with a group chant. Power without purpose leads to paperwork. As Zeus shuffled out of the chamber, clutching a participation scroll and a complimentary stress orb, Hera stopped him. Next time, she said, just try asking. Zeus nodded, then tripped over a bench labeled accountability. He passed the course. Barely. The certificate now hangs awkwardly framed on the back of his thunder throne. And though the lightning returned, so did a slight pause. A half-second hesitation before he turned into a bird or tried to flirt in metaphor. A small win, filed under ongoing improvement, eternal review. You smile softly. Even gods go to training. Even thunder takes notes. And you drift cloud-like into sleep. At first it seemed like just another scroll on the Olympus front desk, neatly rolled, sealed with sun gold and moon silver wax. But upon unrolling, the council clerk gasped softly and whispered, "Oh dear, another one." The scroll was titled, "Formal Request for Mythic Independence from Zeus, submitted jointly by Apollo and Artemis." The twins children of Zeus and the gentle Titaness Leto were among the more competent gods. Apollo, god of light, music, medicine, and poetic overachievement. Artemis, goddess of the moon wilderness, and please do not talk to me unless you're a deer. The scroll began diplomatically. With respect and cosmic affection, we request symbolic distance from our paternal mythos effective immediately. But the reasons as outlined in Appendix A through H were less gentle. Public confusion between our domains and our father's antics. Repeated incidents where mortals confuse Apollo's solar chariot with Zeus's midlife lightning show. Artistic depictions linking Artemis to swans, bulls, or romantic drama, none of which we approve. Emotional toll of being asked, "What's it like having him as a dad?" at every immortal networking event. Artemis attached a footnote. "I live in the forest for a reason." Apollo submitted charts, very polished charts, showing a 32% drop in mortal temples built in his name, following Zeus's most recent scandal involving a goose vineyard and 3 extremely confused prophets. They requested an official mythic autonomy seal denoting them as legends untethered from parental narratives, the ability to opt out of Olympus family dinners, control over their own origin stories in future epics. The council, amused and mildly impressed by the formatting, passed the scroll to Zeus. He read it once, twice, paused, and said, "So, they don't want to be seen as my children anymore." Hermes, delivering the message, replied, "They said they'll still send nectar on your birthday." Zeus considered, then grunted, "Fine, let them be brilliant and distant. I still made them." From that day on, Apollo and Artemis were allowed full narrative independence. Bards no longer had to mention Zeus when singing of their deeds. Poets could start their verses with "born of Leto, twin-born sun and moon," and no longer feel the need to add, "after Zeus turned into a shimmering fog and, well, it's complicated." The twins, for their part, continued their divine duties without interruption. Apollo cured plagues and composed lullabies. Artemis protected creatures and terrified hunters. Once a year, they still sent Zeus a cloud-shaped card, no return address. And so the divine family evolved not with forgiveness, but with paperwork, as it often does. You too are drifting from the noise, from parenthood, from thunder, from divine bureaucracy. You are your own myth now, quiet, unbothered, at rest. Among the many oddities in Olympus's personnel records, one case has always stood out, bolded, underlined, and filed under both medical incidents and spontaneous offspring disputes. It reads, Case number 001A. Athena, origin. cranial eruption. Parent of record Zeus. Authorization. Lacking. Let us go back to that fateful day. Zeus had been suffering from a persistent headache described in the healer's scroll as sharp, rhythmic, and occasionally accompanied by echoes of wisdom. He refused treatment, of course. Just pressure from all this divine thinking, he muttered, rubbing his temples. But the headache grew worse. He tried ice clouds. He tried thunder massage therapy. Nothing helped. Then, in an uncharacteristically rational decision, Zeus called upon Hephaestus, god of forge, fire, and functional problem-solving. Hephaestus arrived, helmet slightly askew, and said, "You want me to," what Zeus pointed to his forehead. "Split it. Just a little. There's something stuck in there." Moments later, with a single ceremonial axe blow gently administered but still echoing across 3 realms, Athena emerged, fully grown, fully armored, and very politely holding a legal scroll. "Father," she said calmly, "I appreciate the hospitality of your skull. However, I'd like to discuss my classification." The council was stunned. No birth, no gestation, no prior announcement. Just an intellectual goddess leaping forth from a god's head like a perfectly timed idea. Athena immediately requested a hearing of recognition and clarification. "I was born outside the accepted protocols of divine emergence," she explained. "There was no witness, no midwife, and no approval from the constellation of procreation oversight." Themis, reviewing the case, agreed it was irregular. She issued a memorandum. While miraculous in form and symbolism, this mode of birth presents logistical issues for future genealogical records. Zeus attempted to smooth things over by hosting a Welcome to Olympus symposium in Athena's honor. But he accidentally booked Dionysus as the entertainment, resulting in an evening of philosophical debates shouted over lyre solos and intoxicated owls. Later, during the official hearing, Athena calmly presented her argument. "I would like formal recognition as a sovereign goddess, not merely an extension of Zeus's imagination. I request departmental independence and the authority to reject fatherly interference." Zeus responded with a short scroll. "But you came from me," Athena replied. "So does the thunder, but it doesn't ask your permission to strike." The council ruled in her favor. She was granted full divine status, independent mythic identity, exemption from all father-daughter loyalty ceremonies. Zeus signed the ruling, then quietly asked if she'd still visit for Cloudfest. She said she'd think about it. From that day on, Athena managed her own affairs, wisdom, war-weaving, and all with immaculate efficiency. She also filed a follow-up memo titled, "On the Benefits of Non-Traditional Divine Emergence, a Case for Innovation in Deity Formation." It was approved for publication. Circulation 3 gods and 1 very ambitious satyr, and thus the birth from a forehead became not a scandal, but a footnote of divine ingenuity. As you drift deeper into your own thoughts, remember you too may have ideas that emerge unexpectedly, fully formed, fully yours, and like Athena, you may carry quiet wisdom inside your head, waiting only for rest to let it bloom. In the quieter corners of Olympus, beneath the scrolls of thunder law and cloud zoning, lies a curious subsection titled Festival Regulation and Ambrosia Consumption Protocols. Rarely used, seldom read, but on one particularly celebratory occasion it became very relevant. The subject of this case, Dionysus, god of wine, revelry, theater, and spontaneous dancing. The instigator, Zeus, who approved a festival without reading the fine print. It began with a scroll, of course. Dionysus submitted Form 889R, Request for Multi-Realm Cultural Celebration, featuring controlled ecstasy, vine growth, and optional mortal participation. The form was long. 26 pages, including addenda on music volume levels and wine vat overflow containment. But Zeus, who was having a busy day rerouting storm clouds from Corinth, skimmed it. Really skimmed it. He signed on page 2. unaware that page 19 included a clause allowing an open-ended celebration across the mortal and divine realms lasting as long as the revelers remain upright. With his signature sealed in gold, the festival began. Day 1. Music, wine, laughter. Mortals and satyrs danced in olive groves. A play about heroic goats received standing ovations. All was merry. Day 5. Olympus reported a 62% decrease in divine productivity. Apollo missed sunrise. Ares canceled a war due to scheduling conflicts with a vineyard. Day 12. Dionysus introduced theater improvisation hour, where gods were encouraged to act out their emotions in interpretive dance. Hera quietly left Olympus. Day 20. Ambrosia stockpiles were critically low. Nectar reserves were repurposed as punch. The oracle at Delphi began answering every question with, "Come back after the after party." Day 31. A group of nymphs started a goddess DJ collective. Hermes became their manager. Day 42. Zeus was finally alerted that he had in fact approved a rolling revel without end. He blinked. I thought it was just a weekend retreat. Themis, stern-faced and sleep-deprived, presented the scroll he signed. Your thunder mark is here, here, and also here, on the line that says, forever if necessary. Zeus sighed. A council was convened, but half the members were still asleep in Dionysus's wine cellar. In desperation, Athena proposed the festival containment plan, which required Dionysus to limit festivities to 4 solstices per year, file a pre-celebration cultural impact statement, host mandatory silence hours between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. Olympus time. Dionysus mid-cartwheel agreed, but only if he could rename the silence breaks dramatic pauses. The plan was accepted. The music dimmed. Apollo resumed sunrises. Demeter reclaimed her barley fields. And Zeus, finally reading the last page of the original scroll, muttered, "Next time, I'll use a checklist." The event is now remembered not as a disaster, but as a case study in enthusiastic over-approval. It's discussed at Olympus HR onboarding under the title, Signatures Have Consequences. You exhale slowly. No parties here. Only hush. Only the stillness of rest between mythic music. Sleep comes soft like quiet laughter fading over hills. There comes a time in every eternal rain when the thunder quiets, the paperwork piles up, and even the king of gods begins to wonder, is this burnout? And so it was that Zeus, Lord of Lightning, CEO of the sky, made a surprising announcement at the Olympus Quarterly Review. I'm taking a leave of absence. There was stunned silence, then a cautious hand raised. How long? Asked Demeter. Indefinite, said Zeus while stuffing scrolls into a cloud-stitched tote bag. I need time to reconnect with my divine center. He appointed Hera as interim ruler of Olympus, citing her remarkable memory for grievances and exceptional organizational spreadsheets. The transition was formalized with a cloud transfer of authority ceremony, a ritual handover of the lightning pen, a short speech from Athena titled Why Stability Isn't Boring. Zeus departed with a shrug, muttering something about island time and maybe writing a memoir. What followed was a period historians would later call the Quiet Olympus phase, also known informally as the month no one transformed into anything weird. Under Hera's rule, meetings began on time. Weather patterns were consistent. Not a single mortal was turned into a tree bird or amphibian. A new policy. 1 miracle per mortal per month was passed with bipartisan godly support. She also launched several reform initiatives. Mandatory form review. Before signature. Zeus clause. Immortal conflict. Mediation. Wednesdays. Deity temperament audits. With optional poetry therapy. Many found the new atmosphere refreshing. Apollo said, I can finally finish a sunrise without thunder interruptions. Artemis whispered, I trust her. She doesn't chase anything. Even Dionysus, pouring wine with only mild chaos, admitted it's organized, oddly soothing. Still whispers remained. Some gods missed the drama, the flash, the random declaration of holidays. Some missed Zeus's wild energy, his unpredictability, his refusal to ever fully read a document. And then one morning he returned, descending from the clouds with a light tan, a half-finished autobiography, and a slightly calmer aura. I meditated, he announced. I swam with metaphorical dolphins. I understand now thunder must be used sparingly. Hera raised an eyebrow. Did you finish your reflection exercises? Zeus nodded. Yes, I even wrote haiku. She handed him a small scroll, reintegration guidelines for former celestial executives. And just like that, the throne was shared again. Less roar, more review. Olympus had changed, not dramatically, but noticeably. A little quieter, a little wiser, and slightly more fond of meeting minutes. As for Zeus, he still zaps things, but now he asks first, sometimes. You settle under your covers. Even the mightiest gods take breaks. Even thunder learns to whisper. Let yourself pause. The sky can wait. By now the scrolls are thick. The complaints are filed. The hearings have echoed across marble halls. Zeus has transformed, exploded, disappeared, returned, and taken at least one seminar on interpersonal accountability. And yet, at the end of every age, at the start of every new storm, the gods look up to the same figure in the sky. Wild-bearded, gold-robed, eyes full of mischief and lightning. Still Zeus. Because for all his chaos, Olympus without Zeus would be like ambrosia without sweetness, like thunder with no roll, like a wedding cake that hasn't been electrocuted yet. He frustrates. He interrupts. He forgets page 2 of the scroll. But he also cares in his own loud, explosive, shape-shifting way. When war threatens the heavens, he's the first to raise his bolt. When mortals forget the old myths, he sends a cloud shaped like a question mark. When storms roll in across the world, he's there not to punish, but to remind us that even chaos has a heart. The gods have come to accept this. Athena with a sigh says, at least he's predictable in his unpredictability. Hermes shrugs. He keeps the scroll clerks employed. Hera, watching him pace in the throne room, smiles quietly. He'll never change. But he's learning to pause before making it worse. And Zeus. He once tried to apologize to a mortal poet by transforming into a metaphor. It didn't go well. But he tried. He still forgets forms. He still misplaces his lightning staff in the washing cloud. He still signs Love Zeus on official documents meant for disciplinary review. But he also watches over Olympus and the world, and the small flickering lights of dreams below. Even now, as you breathe gently in your quiet space, he hums somewhere in the sky. Not loudly, not today. You have listened well, to grievances and gods, to thunder and reform, to scrolls and silliness and stories of old. Now the tale is done. The storm has passed. The clouds are soft again. And Zeus, he's still up there, doing his best, probably. Sleep well.